All right. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to share what we're going to cover today. This is my awesome friend, Susie Moore. She has a new book that's coming out. I've got the advanced version, so it's not the book, but it's so good. I've been reading it. I cannot put it down. Like, the stories are just like, you've lived such a fascinating life. And, I was telling you before we started interviewing that this is like, I can't remember a book I've connected with or just really found so good and powerful more at all. And
Luisa,
so
that is such a joy to hear. Thank you so much for saying so.
it's true. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't say it.
Yes, I know. I do trust you. You are a very honest gal. That's why I adore you.
Awesome. Okay. So, there's so much good stuff in this book, and I want to just jump right in because there are a few things I want to kind of pull out a little bit more. I know it's going to be incredibly helpful for everyone watching this, especially during this time, and just in general as well. So, let's just jump right in. Before I ask the first question, I really want to talk through. I want to take a step back and just talk about the high level of the book, right? It's called Stop Checking Your Likes, Shake Off the Need for Approval, and Live an Incredible Life. How timely, like how on point is this, right? I love the idea of stop checking your likes. I remember when we talked about it a few months ago before the book was done, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is it, right? This just so calls out to you. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit, kind of what made you feel the need to share this message in this book in particular?
Oh my gosh, it's a good question, and it's a big question because I always wanted to write a book which made, any reader understand that they have so much control. Even in a world where there is little control externally, we have so much control within us. And I just found that, like, now is the time. It's more apparent than ever that, with social media being this modern measurement of how well we're doing, are we saying the right thing, wearing the right thing, vacationing the right way, whatever it may be. I just think it's become completely absurd how we're measuring our life and our success and our joy by, other people giving us like a little like or a thumbs up. And as a coach, I know you're a coach too, you know that so much of what holds us back, I would say nearly 100% of what holds us back, is fear of what other people are going to be thinking versus fear of not getting the outcome that we want. We can live with a lot of things not going our way. Humans are resilient, but the thing is, it's the fear of, but what will she say? What will my parents say? What will, X or Y person say? That's the thing that holds us back the most.
It's so true, right? Not getting likes, looking stupid. There are a few, as you were saying this, there are a few examples of what's going on in my life right now where I'm thinking the same thing. And just like, even when we are aware of it, it's just so pervasive. So yeah, this is much needed. All right. So there are a few really, really cool things I want to talk about specifically from what I got through the book. The first thing I want to talk about is because I remember thinking for quite a few years, like, oh man, my parents really effed me up, right? They were too strict. They made me think that money, like all these money stories, blah, blah, blah. And I know I've talked to a lot of people who feel the same way, even though there's gratitude and appreciation. However, I think it was like the first chapter of your book where you were sharing how your father's mistress introduced him to your mother.
Yes.
Right. And it was like this love triangle. Oh, and that's right. The first sentence was like, my sister is named after my father's mistress.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, it doesn't, get more crazy than that I've ever heard of. Right. And
it's
so
absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on how you, and your father was abusive, he was an alcoholic, like how you use that to become the person you are today versus letting it kind of fill you with resentment and hold you back.
Well, I feel like this kind of comes to, I guess, the foundation of the book, which is, the power that we have and the choices that we get to make. I feel as if, whenever I open up about my life, which is essentially the reason I do it the most, people do tend to open up to me. We might not have similar stories because I know that some of my family stories are quite outrageous and certainly, uncommon, but we all have our stuff. right? We all have our stuff. Like, maybe it's, you have an eating disorder, maybe you have some shame around, having an abortion, maybe you have shame around a divorce. I was to write about my divorce. There's so much stuff that we hold on to that's happened to us, like within our control or not. And it's just so much, again, within our power to decide what that's going to do. And I feel as if, if you have an addict for a parent, or if you have, abuse or dysfunction in your house, you can repeat that. And it's very, it's very easy to do. But it's also very easy not to repeat that, to take the lessons and the experiences that you have and understand, well, it's up to me from here. It's going to be, my decision. And whenever I feel as if, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me, or, I'm not responding to life the right way, or I feel like out of control, I just remember that there are a lot of people who've come before me who've had a lot of difficult experiences. I'm certainly not the first. I won't be the last. But I'm fortunate enough to be in a position and to have the knowledge that I have to be aware of the fact that the choices I make are, completely within my control, and I have to take full responsibility for them.
Like it's so powerful, and it's also a concept that is really tough to fully own and absorb, I mean, that's why the book Extreme Leadership by that former Navy officer was so popular. It's because the idea is simple. Like, we need to take responsibility for our lives and ourselves, but it's a lot easier to, sit and think, oh, you know what, I'm screwed up because of my parents, or whatever happened to me. I wasn't born wealthy or lucky or whatever.
Yes.
And I know personally for me, it's been a really long, difficult, intense journey to really work through that myself. And I mean, it's still something that I work through from time to time. Whereas I feel like you are just, you own it, right?
Yeah.
And as you were saying this, I was like, how did you get to this place?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a question that comes up a lot, because overall, hey, look, I have my moments. I'm certainly no perfect human, and who knows what can happen from here. But overall, I would say my kind of, control over my emotions has gotten, I guess, relatively strong, just because I'm always practicing. It's a very conscious practice all the time. It's not like I'm healed now, like, woo, like I'm good, I don't have to do the work anymore. It's always, everyday choosing, right? Like choosing joy, choosing appreciation, choosing to focus on what you can control, especially in a time, right, like right now, which is a very kind of, anxious time. So I feel as if the work never ends, right? The most important part is knowing that it can begin at any time. And I started getting involved in self-help, started reading self-help when I was a teenager. And that gave me a complete shift. It was like a revolution in my mind, because I realized that, I say in the book that I read this book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and I didn't have role models around me at the time, but this book, I just got so sucked into it, and I started reading self-help religiously from there on. And in this book, I've taken what the lessons from 500, 600 self-help books, really distilled them using my own stories and experiences, and have gotten essentially the most useful stuff, the most practical stuff. And how they say, you teach what you most need to learn. I feel like this is true for me, especially with this book, because the principles that I write about, I still have to practice. There's a chapter in the book called So What, right? So when something bad happens, maybe you get a mean remark, maybe you're let down, maybe your property sale falls through, whatever it may be. Instead of, going into this catastrophe mode, which can just be our default setting, just saying, well, so what? What now then? What's going to be next, and not taking it all so seriously.
Yes.
I feel like that's something as humans, if we could just loosen up, lighten up, and not take everything so dramatically, then your life will improve. Just a small change, your life will improve a lot.
It does. And I want to just take a second and reemphasize what you just said. It's a conscious practice every single, minute that you need it. And this is really key, because it's what I've noticed for myself as well. You can't just, read one self-help book or however many and then be like, okay, it felt great as I was reading it, I'm done, I'm good. It literally is a conscious effort every time you need it, whether it's every second, every minute, or whenever things come up as you practice and get better and better at it. Where, like you just said, right, something happens, take a second, so what? And then just really don't let it affect you, like you just said. And that's that's a really tangible practice right there.
Absolutely. And the good news is that it gets easier, because the way that our brain is wired, our brain is lazy, so it likes to go through the same loops. So if our default setting is, optimistic and we practice that over time, we tend to just become this more and more and more. I mean, there's never a finish line. Like it's the same with, I've worked out a lot. I've worked out, I'm done now. Like, don't need to do it again, right? You never reach that point, but your body gets better. It gets easier for you. So I feel like it's exactly the same with the brain. And it's proven. I've done research on this. And so if we can just kind of, have the same like mantras, the same beliefs, having conscious beliefs versus just responding to our default beliefs, often which are completely unintentionally placed there by our parents. I'm questioning them, saying, is this real? Like, is this a fact for me? Is this, going to be true for my life? And again, this is where your own power comes in, and there's so much that you get to choose.
I love this. Okay, so the next story I want to talk about, I was reading this, I was like, are you kidding me? Where you talk about
which one?
I mean, all of them really, but this one specifically, where, and I didn't know the details, where, you'd come to the US, you didn't have a job, and you just like called everybody. And then you actually ended up getting a job in sales for ad tech.
Yes.
And this part where you say, the founder of the company told me, because this was during the election, I needed to go to DC and get us some political funding.
Ad dollars,
right?
And
so you talk about how, you were there all the time, you had a steak dinner at 6:30 and then went at 1 at 9. Like, I love that specific example, because again, it's like, that's so tangible, of dinner to whatever you need to do. And how you ended up, your goal, like the stretch goal that your founder said was like 500,000. And you ended up bringing in $3 million. And basically, like, like everyone was going from New York to DC to try and get that funding.
Yes.
And so actually, I think during that time, I might have been in my tech company as well. And I know all of our salespeople were like going crazy for it too. And so that just really stood out to me for a few reasons. First of all, like you said, when you started, right, you had no clue about the industry, about what you were doing, and you just learned it.
Yes.
And that is huge. And then the second thing that really stood out was how much rejection you must have gone through to bring in that $3 million, right?
Yes.
I'll tell you, this is true for pretty much everyone I speak with, and even for myself. When I think about, I need to go pitch this whatever, or talk to a potential investor or a client, there's still, even to this day, that little bit of, my gosh, I have to put myself out there, potentially get a no. So I'd love to hear a little bit more of kind of the process, or how you've gotten to this point where, and I know, because I've known you for so long, like, no, it's just like, okay, whatever, moving on, it's just a no, not right now.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I swear, and this is really what confidence is. People get confidence wrong all the time. They think it's, that the really chatty party guest, or like the expert, or like the, the winning person at work. And those people can be confident, but what pure confidence is the ability to experience any negative emotion in the body and keep going, right? So instead of saying, oh, knife in the heart, that's it, I'm finished. That is not what a confident person does. They put it into perspective. They say, okay, this is temporary. They will not make a huge deal out of it. And then they will keep going, getting on with it from there. And I feel that rejection, if you can become rejection proof, I joke, I'm rejection proof and I reject rejection. But it's such an ego place to make it personal, right? It's coming from such a place of ego if you're hurt by it, or if you think that it means that you're not good enough, or someone has it out for you. No one's worrying about you. Right? Everyone is busy. They're just trying to pay the visa bill, not burn the chicken, make it through the week. I mean, like, we're all just like, doing our best in our own lives. And when we reject others, and we do it all the time, think about the telemarketers who call, right? The people who try to upsell us, the people who want to connect for coffee and we can't that week. Are we saying it's very personal against that person? No. I mean, and so I feel that if you have this capacity to experience rejection, understand where it is, right? And understand its place in your life, then you can be this real unstoppable force. And I was actually just watching this interview with Dolly Parton, and someone said to her, oh, how many albums have you got? And she's like, oh, I think it was like 30 or 40 albums, but only really 4 that anybody knows about, 4 or 5.
Oh,
So we don't know about those albums, right? Like, because we know her 9 to 5, we know all of the, like, the well-known songs. And that's true for any successful person. I've read so many biographies, and the people who, like, get the good results, we see the results, right? But we don't see, like, the 10 knockbacks for every win.
right.
And people say to me, oh, you're everywhere, like, you know, with your book or in the media, wherever I'm pitching. But I'm like, yeah, you see what I win because it's out there, but you don't see all the no's, the radio silence. And the reason I get those wins is because I don't care about the radio silence and the no's. So I think putting rejection in its place, taking your ego out of it, and understanding that a lot of the time it's just not the right time, or the fact that maybe you can be flexible and just get a bit better at what you're doing. If you can, again, this is where we take our responsibility again, and our accountability, and knowing that it's just an emotion in the body, and it's up to you how you're going to interpret that.
Yeah, I love that. As you were saying this, I remembered, because something you're so good about is it's like pitching is just a part of your schedule, right? You
Yes.
just do it all the time. And it's just like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that a lot of people want to be that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
like whatever they're doing, whether it's making time to build their business, pitch media outlets, or anything else, get a job, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But life comes up for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so and you're so busy as well, right? You're just like, I mean, traveling all over, running your business, all of
Mm-hmm.
this. What advice would you share to someone who's like, look, I wish I could make the time, or I want to make the time, but things just always seem to get in the way of that?
I would say that you're too scared to do it, which is why things are getting in the way. Often, I always love to flip the cause and effect with anything. So, for example, if somebody says, I mean, and this applies to like anything, if somebody says, you know, my parents were divorced, that's why I can't trust, you know, I can't trust love, then I would say, well, is there anybody else you know who has divorced parents and they have a healthy relationship? Right? So often we cling to the thing, which is a really good excuse. A good excuse is still an excuse to justify why we don't have courage in a certain area. So if something's scaring you, it's very easy to be like, oh, I have a million things to do. We all do, right? There's no escaping that. And frankly, it's a bit of a boring excuse. I mean, if you ever work with a coach, we don't like that excuse, right? So I feel as if, you know, if it's important, you schedule it. That's it. If it's important, you do it. And when it comes to specifically pitching the media, I think it's nuts not to be doing it. It's such an uncrowded space. Most people, like, the things that are very easy to do are also very easy not to do. And often we'll just kind of take the pass out. But I mean, incredibly, I see people pitching on their first time, second time, and getting these, you know, tier A wins. And I'm like, that's because you're doing the thing that'll get you there. Whereas most people think it's this big, arduous, you know, kind of got to figure it out. It can be simpler. And this is kind of one of my mantras about letting life be easier. And I feel as if these things that feel insurmountable, they're not, right? The thing that's tricky is like the block. And once we can learn to release our blocks, then everything just tends to open up too.
Yeah, I love that question you just mentioned, where you said, hey, if someone comes to me and says my parents are divorced, so I can't trust in love. Okay, that's one example. What's an example of someone who's divorced and, you know, in love? And
Mm-hmm.
that's so huge, because it can be so
Mm-hmm.
easy just to fixate on the examples that we know, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
just forget that, hey, that's just one data point, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that reframe, and I feel like just simplifies it in a really powerful way, where you're able to say, okay, let me take a step back and look at the big picture.
Yes.
So
And I mean, it's so much more empowering to do that if you think about it. Like the cause and effect, this is like the old psychological model, right? It's like this happened and then this. But you know what? I mean, I think that's really wonky. And even though you might get sympathy and that might be acceptable, your life is going to be really, really small if you just always look at the cause as holding you back.
oh, that's so good. All right. So this is bringing me to the next thing that I specifically wanted to talk about, which is you are so good at holding boundaries, right?
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
yeah, you really are. You're just like, this is what I do. This is, you know, what I work. This is how much I work. And you work hard. You're more efficient than anybody that I know. But the
Mm-hmm.
difference is, like, you know, it's like working hard versus hard work. It's not hard work for you because
Mm-hmm.
you don't let it be. And by
Yes.
hard work, I mean, you know, and a common example is how we need to do something and then we procrastinate. And something that could have
Mm.
taken 30 minutes ends up taking 3 hours. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely experienced it. But for you, it's just like one thing that, I mean, I'll always remember is one day we were about to have lunch, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
I was running maybe 15 minutes late because
Mm-hmm.
of the subway.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there and I was like, I'm so sorry. Oh no, I had a client call. That's what it was. Who ran over. And you were like, no worries. I just wrote up this article that I'm going to send to my editor right now. And
Yeah.
you just typed it up on your phone, no, like, overthinking, need to go back and edit, none of that. Right. So it's just like, when I say boundaries, not only with people, but with yourself, where you're like, I'm not going to let it be hard work. Yes, I work hard, and you do, like, you're very productive. You get more done than pretty much anybody I know, but you don't let it be hard. You don't let it be, frustrating, anything like that. And that really extends to your interactions with others as well. And so what I would, and I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included. I'd love to get your tips on, like, where did it start that you started feeling so firm in these boundaries, both for yourself and for others?
I'm very happy you said that, because I've never actually even thought about myself as someone who has great boundaries, but maybe I do. I think that this comes when you learn to respect yourself. Right. And I think that this is probably like a really common theme in the book too, that all of our problems come down to this lack of worthiness, right? And this lack of appreciating ourselves and, the time that we have, not just like in the day, but with our, our short, precious life. And I feel as if, how we treat ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, the world will always just be like responding and kind to us. And I think choosing to be in this mentality of accountability, and choosing to be in this mentality of, I'm in control here, that just lends itself to not being really victimized by anybody, and not being like, someone's late, this happened, this pulled out, this canceled. It's like, okay, we're not reliant on any one source of our good. There's not one person, one agreement, like one relationship, one contract that, that is do or die for us. As humans, I just feel like there's always a million options. And I speak in the book too, that if we're a human being with options, if we know our options, we never really feel stuck. And so I feel as if, maybe with the boundaries, I'm just aware of, like, I think what's available to me. And if something doesn't feel good or doesn't feel right for me, then I don't feel bad kind of letting it go.
When you were saying this, what I really wanted to ask you was, where does this like sense of worthiness come from? Because it's like, we have confident people, right? I would consider myself pretty confident, but
I would too.
Thank you. But I know that when it comes to like my internal self-worth, there's definitely still work I need to do to like have it be where it should be as a human being.
Yes.
So
yes.
like, where did this like sense develop for you, and how did you work on really making it so strong?
Yes. Well, I mean, this might be a bit of a spiritual conversation now, Luisa, if that's okay with you. I think at our core, we know it, right? At our core, we know it when we're born, we know it when we're young, it kind of gets beaten out of us over time. But I think when we're young, think about like how just children are, they're not inhibited, they expect things, they expect love. It's very, very healthy. But, as we grow older, there are a lot of influences, there's a lot of unlearning we need to do as adults. I feel as if, just like any other practice, it's something that you have to keep remembering. And one thing that I believe, and this is something that I put in the book, I just feel like it's so practical. I say something like, if you go hiking or skiing or somewhere and you get lost, right? Say you're with a group and you get lost. Are they going to be like, wait, should we bother looking for her? Is she verified on Instagram? Like, is this person worth finding? Like, are they worthy of a rescue? I don't know. Did she do her taxes? Like, of course you're worthy, right? It's inherent. We know this at our core. We're just so quick to find evidence otherwise all the time. It's just our ego at work. And again, this is a learned behavior. And, kind of growing up, one thing that was helpful for us, because we lived on a lot of donations which came from the church. And I'm not religious in any traditional sense, but we used to go to Sunday school. There was also food there. It was great for our family. But I just remember believing that, we are supported and we are loved and we all deserve to be here. We didn't ask to be here, Luisa, right? At this time with our parents, like, think about it. It's a miracle that, like, think about all the things that had to happen in order for you to be here now, how your parents met, how their parents met, like the process to bring a healthy human into the world. Like, it's such a miracle. And I feel as if to question it is to question anything in nature. And that's not our job. Our job is just to do to love and appreciate what we have. And that's as simply as I think I can put it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to want to go back and listen to this myself. So along those lines, the other thing I wanted to ask you about this, which you talk about in the book, in which you're so strong, because I know you, like, is you don't care if people like you, and not in a bad way. in a really strong, like, I know my worth, right? Talking about worth. I know who my friends are. I take good care of my friends. Like, you're basically one of the most dependable people I know, you know, one of the best people and friends I know. But at the same time, you're like, if someone doesn't like me, you know, great. It doesn't bother you at all. Right? So, like, I mean, extending the conversation a little bit about worth to this area, because it's so important, because we started our conversation talking about this, you know. I'd love to hear a little bit about, like, how you think about that and how you're just able to not be bothered.
Oh, it's a good question. I feel like this is what everyone loves to talk about, because as humans, right, it could be the most cutting, awful thing that we experience. It can ruin us, right, if we allow it to. And when it comes to, like, people liking us, right, we're human. It doesn't feel great if somebody, you know, rejects you, doesn't invite you to something, doesn't welcome you in, if you're not, like, you know, this starts early, right, in our lives. Like, if you're left out, whatever all these kind of things that, you know, happen through our lives are. The way that I feel about it, if someone doesn't like me, is, first of all, remembering that everyone sees everything through a very personal lens, right? So if someone doesn't like me, right, there's probably just something about me that's affecting them, which is about them, right? So sometimes I've had people say about me, she like rubs me the wrong way, you know, or she's a bit much. And my question would be, if ever I had a conversation, a loving conversation, would be, do you wish you could be a bit more out there? Do you wish you could maybe, like, is there something that, and this is, I mean, using this as, like, you know, any example, but I think about the people who I don't like, right? And often I'll just say, or I'll realize that they have a quality that maybe is missing from me, or they have something that I would kind of love to, like, to like, just to possess. And so, knowing kind of, you know, where not liking somebody comes from, what really the root cause of that is, it's really, again, like, just deep, like, never personal. And I feel as if I'm getting involved in other people's thoughts and feelings, that's just, like, not my business, right? It's just truly not my business. And when it comes to specifically, like, any online hate or people not liking you at all, I really believe that, you know, everything that you do in this world is either, you know, a demonstration of you, like, you living your life and doing the things, or, like, actually a real call for, like, needing some help or needing some attention or love. So if people are, you know, hiding behind their computers criticizing you, then they actually need your compassion. I really believe that. Because think about it, Luisa, are you doing that? Are you, like, behind your computer screen, like, hating people, like, with negative, mean, anonymous comments?
No.
Like, like, if you went through a miserable time in your life, maybe do it. Like, but it's not something that, like, typically a very, you know, a healthy person does. And so, yeah, I feel like everything kind of has its perspective. And if someone feels like something's missing, often they'll find the people who have it and criticize them, because that's kind of easier, right? It's always, like, a little bit easier to do that than to kind of work on ourselves. And yeah, I mean, I just think understanding what, you know, where it all really comes from, and knowing too that the people who are, you know, seemingly at least the most whole, the most healthy, they don't really dislike anybody.
Oh, that's such a good point, because as you were saying this, I was thinking about someone in the very beginning of my career at work who I found annoying, right?
Yeah. So why? Yeah. What was it?
How did I find them annoying? Because they always spoke up at every meeting. They were always, like, super passionate and into their job. And now looking back, I'm like, you know what? It was because at the time I was not confident. I wasn't speaking up at meetings. And there was a huge part of me that wished that I had that everything that he had, right? The courage, the everything, the proactiveness. And it's like, yeah, so I mean, I'm sure we all have situations like that we can refer back to right now. And when you think about that, it's just a little bit easier to put yourself in a hater's shoes as well. And I love what you said, to really respond with compassion, because it can be easy to forget. Because sometimes, you know, a lot of the time when I see something, I'll just be like, all right, whatever, not going to bother with it. But if I do respond with an emotion, sometimes it's anger. Like, you know, like, how could you say that? Like, I put so much heart into, you know, whatever I did. I try and treat everybody right. How insulting, like, you know, like, that's an insult to my character. And
but is it?
You're right, because it just goes back to, like, if I am truly, you know, in that confidence of my self-worth, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and coming from that place of compassion, well, what's going on with them that's making them lash out like this, when I know I'm been in integrity and all of that.
Exactly. And that's kind of where your steadiness will always come from, right? Just kind of you knowing who you are. And, it's funny. And I also want to share now that, look, I get a lot of mean comments, when I put content out there, like whenever I share anything and it gets picked up, like people say really, in fact, I have a page in my book just listing some of the hate that I've gotten, just like all the comments. And they're mean. Like people say I look like a man, I'm a gold digger. I mean, mean things. I want to put them out there because I want people to feel like they're not alone. Because sometimes we're like, oh, that person would never get criticism like this, or this shining star in my industry, they never get these comments. We all get them. There's no way to avoid it. And actually, the only way to avoid it is just sit on your couch and say nothing for the rest of your life. So have fun. Have fun doing that if you want to avoid criticism, because there's really no way around it. And it's just, you're not in it. It's nothing to do with you.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I know sometimes whenever I see like some of your ads or something pop up on my news feed, I'll always like, heart it to like show support and help, like, and sometimes I'll see the comments when I'm just trying to see like great training or something, because I like know that training. And it's just like the way, like sometimes you don't respond, but I just remember like when you do, like there was this once, like just to give a specific example, where, you talk about how you've been on the Today Show and you had a screenshot of it. And someone was like, do you have the actual video? And like, you posted the link, and basically the person was like, this link isn't working. And then you found another link and it was like, here you go. And then basically you, or maybe someone who was on your team, like everyone is obviously in the same alignment that you are. They were, they said, did you think he was fake? Lighthearted, right? Because that was obviously what was going on.
Yeah, people think that I Photoshop my pictures, which is, I mean, but what a compliment to me, right? For it not to be Photoshopped, for it to be real, but for someone to think that is so aspirational, she had to fake it. Like,
yes, I love that you turned it around like that.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, you know what? Luckily, I didn't have to do that because I don't know how to Photoshop anything. I don't what do you even do with that in? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to do it though.
Yes, I love that really concrete example you just gave of how you turned it around.
Yeah, how do you respond, Luisa? I'd love to know, because you're out there, right? You've got content, and I'm always learning, and I love listening and learning from leaders like you too. So how do you turn around like a piece of?
Yeah. So, the thing is, I'm not as like, I don't want to say witty, but I'm just like not, I'm not good at turning it into a humorous kind of like. And so I have two things. First of all, in general, I don't respond to a lot of them because I'm not reading them, right? My team knows that unless it's something that we really need to respond to, it's just not something to focus our time and energy on. However, if it is something that does require response, I most of the time I stick to the facts so that emotions don't get tied up to it.
Wonderful.
Exactly. If someone's like, hey, is this real? I'd be like, hey, X thousands of students I've helped. Here's a, screenshot of my Facebook group or whatever. Facts are there. So like, I stick to the facts so that like, that saying like, don't say things that you wouldn't feel comfortable having posted on the New York Times.
Yes.
If I stick to facts, I'm not going to let my anger get the best of me, and no one's going to misunderstand what I'm saying as being snarky.
Yes, exactly. But you see, you keep it real, right? There's not this emotion with it. And this is where our ego will get carried away. It's like, wait, how can we make this the ugliest, most dramatic, most miserable experience? It's like, no, facts. Next.
Exactly. Okay. All right. I love this. So the last thing I really want to make sure we touch on, which is so key, you and I have a friend in common, Ron, and he and the book, The Black Swan, talk about, he references the term, which was first in the book, The Black Swan, antifragile, being antifragile, right?
Yes.
And it's so important because especially nowadays with the speed of connections, the speed everything moves at, we get more and more kind of hits to our goals, more rejections, all of that. And it's not just about being okay. It's about actively being anti-fragile, right?
Yes.
And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you practice that for yourself and really just like how you stay in that place, because I feel like no matter how confident, how self-aware we are, it's just, it's something that we have to constantly work on.
Yes. And I think there's no escaping it. And this is why there are days where your emotions won't be great, right? It's natural to go up and down. No one's going to be happy and, content and satisfied all of the time. So experiencing the things is part of, your life experience. And the way that it serves is through this contrast when things are going wrong. That's where you really build your strength. Like success doesn't make you really resilient, right? Success doesn't make you, this person who can really be strong.
Yeah.
And so what I love about this concept of being anti-fragile, which, kind of Ron was the person who shared it with me, is, when things go wrong, they don't make you strong. They make you very strong. When things go wrong, surviving them isn't like, yeah, you made it through. It's no, that difficult thing has made you kind of, invincible in some ways, right? Because once you go through the things, when you overcome them, this is your proof of grit, and you already had this kind of mental learning experience of what you've overcome. You've seen it through, and this is kind of what makes you a warrior, right? And I don't like using these kind of war terms because but it's essentially isn't that what the warrior is? It's not the person who, there's an old saying, as a smooth sea doesn't make a great sailor, right? It takes the things, and this is why if anyone's been in business for a long time successfully, I already have respect for them because I know they have had some shit. I know what they would have gone through. And people don't see, right? They don't know the behind the scenes of our lives. They don't know what we're going through. They see the wins because that's what's posted. And frankly, we don't want to talk about our disasters all the time. Right. It's helpful sometimes, which is why I put, mine in my book. But it's the things that, that we have to overcome, live through, learn from, be flexible from, take learning from, that makes you this person who adds so much value, right? That's your contribution, because it's so easy to stop, right? Like I say in my book, success and failure are the same road, right? Success is just further along. And if you can kind of keep going on a bumpy road, then not only are you a better driver, right, but you're up there where most people stop. There's some comfy parking spots, most people are just way behind you. So yes, it's when the things are going wrong, don't think that when things are hard, it's remembering that you're not doing it wrong. Yeah. The thing you have to remember is just that you can do the hard things.
Yes. Okay. As you were saying this, I think something that might be really helpful is, can you share with us some of the kind of obstacles you've had to overcome along the way? Just some tangible things, because I know it'll be really inspiring for people to hear and be like, oh my gosh, I got this when, we just talked about it, but this brings it even more, makes it more tangible.
Yes. I mean, there are so many things, right? I'm where do I begin? I feel one thing that I think has been a big lesson for me is often when you start out with a product or a service, you're this is it, this is the winner, right? You're I got it. And you invest time, money, resources into it. And then you're this isn't kind of what I expected. I expected people to love this, for this to be a really popular outcome. And I'm just getting this crap response. This is essentially a failed launch for me. And then thinking, okay, instead of switching from what's wrong, catastrophe, I'm not good at this, it's over, I've got to get a job again. Thinking, okay, what's missing here? What is the missing piece here? And then listening. Right, and thinking, what do people want? Right, what do people want from me? Instead of thinking, oh, I know, I have the answers, I have the ideas. It's when things fail, even when you feel confident, that you get this golden data, right? But most people don't want to see it. They're too upset looking at their numbers. It's no, it didn't work. I'm bad. This is, the industry is dead. Whatever it is. So I think understanding that wherever you're going to be, wherever you start now, it won't be where you're going to be even in a year or two, and remaining always open to that. And instead of thinking that failed, I didn't get the results I want, I've got to start again, saying no, I know what I'm doing better this time. And understanding that if you're always going to be flexible, and if you're always listening, and if you're not afraid to keep bringing your passion to it, this takes some mental training, but knowing that where you are now, even if it's going well, is not going to be even you in a year, if you're kind of, if you're open, and if you're doing the things that, if you're constantly remaining open, learning, you're going to be rapidly changing. And I think that some people think that the rapid changes have to be smooth and always up, and they're not. They're not. There are some pitfalls. There are some times you lose money. it's true for everybody. There are no exceptions.
Yeah, no, I love that you shared this specific example, because as you were saying it, I was thinking of one of my courses, which helps you like work on your mindset. And it's something it's a course I'm very passionate about. Because it wasn't like I did market research and I was like, people want this. It was like, people need to learn this.
Yes.
So I created from that place. And the first time I offered it, I didn't make a single sale.
There you go. Yeah.
I was like, oh, this sucks. And then, so what I did, I completely reworked the course and how I was explaining it. I reworked the way I was explaining it, the sales page, the sales emails, like every single thing over quite a few times, about like a year and a half. Right. And we just closed the most profitable offering for it ever. And so it's just like, it wasn't smooth. There were moments when I was like, this fails, right? But it's just come from that place of that long term, all the things we've talked about, the anti-fragile. It's made me a better marketer, right? Like the things that I have made me stronger from it, and that I've learned that I wouldn't have if it had been successful the first time around. And I mean, this is true for, like you said, any failure or setback.
Yeah, and what I'd say is, in those moments when the stuff doesn't go your way, like, not to expect to feel happy and excited about the data right away. Right? Because you're not going to be like, yes, it failed. You have to be like, this sucks. You can be like, this sucks. And I'm like, I'm not getting out of bed today. Like, this sucks. Like, you don't want to create from this place of resentment, feeling low. You have to like give yourself a little bit of space and allow it to be. And you can say, you know, I'm disappointed, to hold that emotion and not skip over it. So to be disappointed, like to have maybe feel guilty that you wasted money, maybe feel like, you know, unsure of yourself. These things are very, like, we're human. But yeah, like Luisa, just what you said, I mean, showing real grit. Most people are like, well, that, you know, the industry's dead. They'll go straight to not even my course, my business, but the whole industry is dead, right? Again, because we're looking for a good excuse that lets us off the hook. And it's like, you know, don't let yourself off the hook. Be on the hook. Like, be on the hook. The good stuff is when you're on the hook for things.
Okay, I love this. The last thing that I think it would be really timely for us to talk about is just how you maintain all of this and continue to move forward when times are tough. Like, what's going on in the world right now, it's just, it's tough, right? And every day I see posts of people, I mean, like, you know, I, especially for local small businesses, restaurants, like, I'm just like, you know, my heart goes out to them. And it's tough for everybody. So it can be really easy to get into the mindset like, oh, you know, this sucks. This isn't going to work, you know, maybe. And I've seen so many people say like, you know, this is not the time to be selling. And, you know, I disagree with that for some other reasons. But when it comes to like your own mindset and how you maintain your boundaries, your positivity, your forward focus during times like these, what do you do?
Well, first of all, it's a difficult time. There's no getting over it, right? The impact, I mean, physically, economically, I think we're yet to understand how deep it is. So a couple of things that I guess help me in this kind of very unprecedented time too, is acknowledging that when there's chaos, all you can control is like the little corner of the world that you touch, right? And then it's your responsibility to do the best with that little percentage of control that you have over your life. And no matter where you are, there's always going to be like that decision. Are you going to abdicate that control and just be like watching the news and feeling in a powerless place? Or can you be a leader? And I don't mean a leader like leading the masses, but like, can you be a leader in your home, like with your children, like with your friends, with your spouse, just a leader in your own life? And I mean, no matter what, there's always going to be like personal responsibility that you can take for your own experience, which is actually very uplifting to others, because we learn through role models. We learn through how other people are living their lives, and to add a lot of panic isn't going to be useful to other people. So I think it's also generous to think about, you know, how can I make the most of this time with the limitations that are, you know, upon all of us. And it's funny, I spoke to my mum, she's old, she lives alone. And she said, oh, it's not that bad. You know, she's always very optimistic. She's like, oh, it's not that bad. And she's like, your grandparents, you know, they were called to war, you know, you just have to sit on your sofa. You know, she's like, oh, it's not that bad. You have a break, you know? So, I mean, like, the comparison's impossible, but I mean, what do you do? It's like in any situation, you have to, I think, seize the control that you have, give it some perspective, and find that, I mean, some feedback that I've been getting from some people in my community is that they're spending a lot of time with their family right now because they're all together. Parents aren't working and traveling in the same way. We're kind of reconnecting with some of our older hobbies as humans. Like, it's a forced break, it's a forced regroup. So I just think, I mean, where is like the silver lining in this, even temporarily? You can be informed, responsible, as a citizen. But like when it comes to you, what can this mean for you? Because there are a lot of different ways that you can experience this time, and why not choose just the best way for you and your family?
Choose. Yeah, I love that. Like everything you said, there are limitations, put into perspective, do the best for you and your family. And I mean, that's really what we need to do and what we can do.
Anything you'd add to that, Luisa? Because I'd love to learn too from you, and I always listen to you, you know that.
I mean, when times like this, I'm just like, okay, first feel into what's the right thing, right? Do the safe thing, first of all, like stay away, social distancing, all the things that we're already being told to do. I don't have anything medical to add to that because I have no expertise there, but follow that. And then on top of that, I actually think it's responsible to continue to be selling and sharing your offers. First of all, because as business owners, we have contractors and employees whose salaries depend on our businesses. So when people say, oh, I'm not going to, be doing business, that doesn't help anybody, right?
Exactly. There's nothing good that happens in any economy when money stops circulating.
No, exactly. And so also, I exactly what we've been talking about. In times like this, you can choose how you respond, how you think to it. And so what can you do versus deciding, I'm not going to sell anything? Well, how can you offer something that's helpful to people, right? How can you help your existing customers? And I've loved some of the things I've been seeing where I use Loom, that video recording software, and they've said, hey, we're going to offer free plans to everybody in education so that teachers and students can interact, right? How can you show your community that you care in a way that's relevant? So not just saying, hey, I'm going to give my course for free when it has nothing to do with anything going on, right? I don't mean that way, because free for the sake of free does not help anybody, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Helpful, sure, there's a time and place. Like now we have some customers emailing in about their course payment plan saying, hey, I need a grace period because of what's going on at work. We're flexible. We're actually working with people on that.
Same. Same.
And so it's just like, there are things that you can and should be doing, but it doesn't mean everything stops. Right. So just taking that perspective. And then for me also, I'm going to share this. This is very timely. I think it's going to be really helpful to so many people, but I'm not also writing yet another email that all the ones we've been seeing about be safe, reiterating the same information, because I don't have anything new to add to that,
Right.
And
exactly.
So when I do, like this interview, then I'm going to share it. Then I'm going to, step up and share this and do my version of leadership. But it's about finding that fine balance, not doing what everyone else is just for the sake of it, feeling into what's right, and following your conscience, your confidence, and doing it that way.
I completely agree with you, because we know what's right? There's a knowing for us. So I love how you say that, feeling into what's right. And interestingly, right before this chat with you, I was just speaking with an editor of mine, and she knows my position, a book out. Normally this would be my media blitz where I'm writing, about my book, and it's a very challenging media time right now because it's all about, what's happening in the world. And she said, still send your ideas, because we need to hear other things too. We can't just be, she's like, we still want to hear about other things, unrelated. So again, I mean, there are so many different ways where you can make a contribution, make an impact, but it really has to feel right for you.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I think, I know we went over, I don't know by how long.
Oh, I love it. No, I know I could talk to you forever, Luisa.
And I'm so excited to share this with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Luisa.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for this. And then everybody, go and pre-order this book. I'm going to have a link with bonuses and stuff. But I mean, I know as soon as you told me, I pre-ordered 5 copies. My husband, my sister, my family, because I was because you and I already talked about it. So I knew what was going to be in it a little bit. And I was just I couldn't wait to read this. And I mean, it did not disappoint. So
thank you so much, Luisa. That means the world to me. Everything's yes. Stop checking your likes.com.
Love it.